let's talk about data in vehicles. All right, so data in cars and data for when it comes to like phone lines and everything like that are two completely different things whenever we're talking about data. All right. So when I first started remote starts, when I first started installing remote starts, I had no idea what data was. No one really explained it to me. They just kept saying data, data this, data that. I had no idea what data was though. Everything that I knew about data was for like your phone service, your what you use for data on when you're making using internet and stuff like that on your phones. I had no idea what it was for cars. And actually, even a couple weeks into installing remote starts, I had no idea still what it was. I finally figured it out, and there's not a whole lot of videos explaining what data is. So we use data in cars for a bunch of different things. It's not just for remote starts. We use it for radios and everything like that. But basically, to sum it up, data in vehicle it's AC current. It's not DC. So if you don't know it, the difference between AC and DC current is AC is alternating current, which means what you should probably go look that up, and you probably shouldn't be installing remote starts or working on vehicles if you don't know what AC and DC is. DC is direct current, which means you have your positive and negative, everything like that. Anyway, so data is, there's a bunch of different types of data when it comes to vehicles. You have like your RX, TX, your CAN high, CAN low, your SIL, stuff like that. Different ways to communicate to the vehicle's computer essentially. So like the data really helps us as installers because that means we don't have to turn around and tag everything in the vehicle. We don't have to do lock, unlock, parking lights in some situations, trunk, when you don't have to turn around a lot of times and go up to the immobilizer. There's a bunch of different things that data will allow us to do without having to run cabling and wires all the way up and down the vehicle. So first thing you need to know is that when you're dealing with a standard remote start brain, like this guy right here, this is like one of the cheaper remote starts. This is actually an Avatar one button brain. And this is the box with all the harnesses and stuff like that into it. Whatever. This does not read data by itself. There's no way for this to communicate with your vehicle's computer. You have to do this entirely analog, and it's not going to bypass your immobilizer. If you don't know what an immobilizer is, I kind of explain it in one of my other videos. But you have to pair it with a bypass module, like this directed one, or this iData link one right here, the ALCA. You have to pair it with that, and you have to connect them using a data cable, which will plug into this red port right here, and it will plug into this white port on the directed, and so on and so forth. So that will communicate. So essentially this will read the data, and this brain will tell the bypass what to do. So this brain will tell the bypass what to do, and the bypass will tell the car what to do using data. So the data, the way it communicates is different voltage. So like let's say your car is supposed to unlock at 2.5 volts, it'll send a 2.5 volt to it, or 3 volts or whatever, so on and so forth. That's how it communicates with the vehicle. You can't turn around and send that with anything else because it communicates with the vehicle's computer, telling the vehicle what to do. And like I said, it really helps us. So if you turn around and let's say you're doing a remote start install on a 2013 Ford Fusion or whatever, that car is basically old data. That's a RSR card, which means it's remote start ready. You don't need to use a standard brain. You can if you want to, but you don't need to. You can do a standard DBL. You can use a DS3, a DS4. You can use the ALCA, whatever you want to use, and you can do basically just connect it with a remote pack, and you can do everything with this. It saves us time, it saves us money, and it's a really quick, easy install. It's like a 6-wire install or something like that. You have power, ground, and then your CAN high, CAN low, and a couple. You can do everything at the OBD2 connector, pretty much. So yeah, that's pretty much what data really helps us with and helps us communicate with the vehicle. There's a couple different other things that we use with data in vehicles, like I said, with radios. So back in, like, I want to say 2000s is whenever GM really started to use it. So you'll have a lot of vehicles, whenever you turn off the car, the radio will stay on. It won't shut off till you open the door. That's typically because the radio is controlled by data. There's not an ignition wire. When you pull the radio out to go to replace it, you don't have the red wire, ignition wire, signal wire, remote turn on wire, whatever you want to call it. You don't have an ignition wire behind the radio though that tells the radio turn on and off. It's done through a data communication wire, or data wire. So let's say you are Chrysler really became big into it as well. But like, let's say you're replacing radio in it. There's, yes, some vehicles you could turn around and just run an ignition wire, like on the Chrysler vehicles. You can do that a lot. You don't need to use like a expensive pack. Let's say it's a CH, whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah, let's say you're using a pack harness or whatever, C2R, CH24, whatever you're using. Let's say you're using a pack harness. You don't have to. The pack harness is going to allow you to not have to run cabling in the vehicle. It's also going to keep your door chimes and stuff like that working. But on that vehicle, most of the older ones, like let's say from 2000 to 2008, you really don't need to use the data harness unless it has amplified system. If it has an amplified system, then yes, you need to use the data harness. Otherwise, it's not going to work, and you're going to have to bypass the factory amplifier. But that's not on every vehicle. I'm just talking about Chrysler specifically. So don't be like, oh, I did a radio install on whatever car, it's not working because I was in the Dayton. No, don't do that. It's only certain cars, and if you don't know what you're doing, then I would suggest to go ahead and get the data harness. GM vehicles are a little bit different. I think it was around 2007 to 2008, somewhere around there. GM started integrating their turn signal clicks into the data harness. So if you turn around and bypassed it when you replace the radio, when you turn your turning signals on, they would flash, but you want to hear that click, 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 click noise whenever the turn signal is on. Also, you have your door chimes and stuff like that go through the module. But either way, there's that's pretty much what you end up losing with that. But data harness, that's like I said, that's another thing that we use in our industry for data. Is for radios. You got remote starts and a couple other things here and there. It does make some things difficult if you're trying to bypass something, and everything's done through data or MUX, like in Chrysler's situation. If you want to do your parking lights in Chrysler's, you have to. It's a MUX wire, which basically means you have to put a resistor on your parking light wire, because it has to see a certain voltage and everything like that for the parking lights to turn on. So you use a resistor to knock the voltage down, so you can integrate into that. But once again, if you turn around and you use like a DS3, it already does that for you. So yeah, data is a great way to go with. That's kind of how it's explained in a nutshell. If you are going to be doing this full time, or if you're trying to do this full time, I would definitely recommend looking more into how data works. But that's essentially how it is. I know I keep saying data over and over again, but that's what this video is pretty much about. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you can, like and subscribe, because I'm going to be doing hopefully a lot of these videos. Let me know if it helped you any at all. And if you have any questions or anything, let me know. Thanks.